It begins with the kind of heat that seems to press on your shoulders like an invisible hand. The air shimmers, as if reality itself is trembling under the Arizona sun. Out there, in the heart of the Superstition Mountains, the wind moves strangely, sometimes silent, sometimes carrying a low whistle that could almost be a voice. Rocks the color of rust rise like broken teeth, jagged against a sky so blue it almost hurts to look at. And somewhere within those rugged ridges, legend says, lies a treasure so vast, so dangerous, that it has swallowed more men than it has ever rewarded. This is the story of the Lost Dutchman's Gold Mine, a story that's part history, part myth, and entirely irresistible. The tale begins in the mid-1800s, a time when the West was still raw and untamed, and gold fever ran like wildfire through the veins of dreamers, drifters, and desperate men. Arizona's Superstition Mountains had already gained a reputation among the Apache as a sacred and cursed place. They called it a land where spirits roamed freely, a place to be respected, not exploited. But to prospectors, the mountains were not just stone and legend. They were a challenge, a promise, perhaps even a dare. Enter Jacob Waltz. Despite the nickname that would stick to him for eternity, the Dutchman, Waltz was actually German, born in Württemberg around 1810. He came to America chasing opportunity, eventually making his way west in search of gold. By the 1860s, he had drifted into Arizona territory, working claims and living the hard, solitary life of a prospector. Waltz was not a man who spoke much, and perhaps that's why people listened closely when he did. Sometime in the late 19th century, rumors began to circulate that he had found a rich vein of gold somewhere deep in the Superstitions, a vein so pure that the gold could be pried from the rock with a knife. He never told anyone exactly where it was. Some say he stumbled on it by accident. Others claim it was revealed to him by a Mexican family who had worked the mine in secret before being massacred by Apache warriors. In both versions, the gold was more than mere wealth. It was cursed, a thing that brought death to those who sought it too greedily. The mystery deepened in 1891 when Waltz fell ill during a flood in Phoenix. As he lay dying, he confided to a woman named Julia Thomas, a neighbor who had cared for him, bits and pieces about the mine's location. He spoke of landmarks, a sharp peak that looked like a sombrero, a hidden canyon, a certain tree split by lightning. But his clues were maddeningly vague, and before he could say more, the old Dutchman slipped away into the great unknown. Julia, along with two companions, set out into the Superstitions armed with Waltz's cryptic directions. The journey was brutal. The sun scorched their skin by day, and at night, the temperature dropped enough to make their breath mist in the moonlight. They searched for weeks, following dry creek beds, climbing jagged slopes, scanning the landscape for the Sombrero Peak. But the mine eluded them. They returned empty-handed, their provisions gone, their bodies weary. Yet the seed had been planted. Word spread quickly. Men came from across the country, some seasoned prospectors, others city-bred dreamers, who had never held a pickaxe. The Superstition Mountains became a lure, a siren song in stone. But the mountains did not welcome all who entered. The terrain was unforgiving, thorned cacti, hidden ravines, sudden storms that could turn a dry wash into a torrent within minutes. And then there were the whispers of something darker, strange lights on the ridges at night, the feeling of being watched, the occasional discovery of a body, a searcher who had ventured in but never found his way out. One of the most chilling chapters came in the early 20th century, when the bodies of two prospectors, the Weiser brothers, were found in the desert, riddled with bullets. Rumors swirled that they had discovered the mine and been murdered for their knowledge. In another case, a man named Adolf Ruth ventured into the Superstitions in 1931, carrying a set of old maps he believed would lead him to the gold. Weeks later, his skull was found with a bullet hole, miles from his camp. Some say he was killed for his map. Others believe the desert simply claimed him. The pattern was hard to ignore. Those who searched too hard for the Lost Dutchman's mine often met bad ends: thirst, heat stroke, snakebite, or violence. This gave rise to the belief that the mine was guarded not just by the harshness of nature, but by a curse. The Apache were said to have sworn that outsiders who disturbed the sacred land would never leave alive. Whether the curse was real or not, the list of fatalities mounted over the decades. And yet, people kept coming. Some were drawn by greed, others by the sheer challenge, and still others by the romance of the legend itself. The clues left behind, real or fabricated, fueled countless theories. One popular belief is that the mine lies near Weaver's Needle, a towering spire of rock that juts skyward like the finger of a stone giant. From certain angles, in certain light, the needle takes on an almost human silhouette, watching over the valleys below. Many treasure hunters have combed its flanks, convinced that a hidden passage nearby leads to the mine. Others believe the gold vein is nowhere near the obvious landmarks, but buried deep in a canyon accessible only through a narrow, twisting ravine, a place that would be nearly impossible to find without having stumbled on it once before. Some insist that Waltz left behind a literal map in the form of carved symbols on rocks, or that he described the mine in a coded letter. Over the years, countless Dutchman maps have surfaced, their authenticity hotly debated. Then there are the more fantastical theories, that the gold is not gold at all, but something older and stranger. Spanish treasure hidden by conquistadors, or even a remnant of a lost civilization predating native tribes. A few fringe theorists have suggested the mine could be connected to the 7 cities of gold, mythical cities said to be brimming with wealth somewhere in the southwest. Despite the danger, the Superstition Mountains remain a magnet for adventurers. Even today, modern treasure hunters armed with GPS, drones, and satellite imagery venture into the canyons, convinced they'll succeed where others failed. Every so often, someone claims to have found evidence, an old mining tool, a scrap of ore, a rock face bearing strange markings. And while these finds make headlines in Arizona papers and online forums, the mine itself remains stubbornly hidden, as if the mountains have no intention of giving up their secret. There's something haunting about this story, something that goes beyond gold. It's about the pull of the unknown, the belief that somewhere just out of reach lies a fortune that could change everything. It's about risk and obsession, about the thin line between determination and self-destruction. The Lost Dutchman's Gold Mine is a riddle with no answer, a mirage that has drawn generation after generation into the desert's embrace, and sometimes into its grave. When you stand in the Superstition Mountains at sunset, the rocks glow as if lit from within, shifting from crimson to deep violet as the light fades. The silence settles heavy, broken only by the cry of a distant hawk or the rustle of a lizard in the brush. If you listen closely, you might almost hear footsteps on the rocks behind you, though when you turn, nothing is there. And in that moment, you understand why people believe the mountains are watching, why they say that some places don't just hold stories, they guard them. The Lost Dutchman's mine may be real, or it may be nothing more than a legend spun from a dying man's ramblings. But legends, like gold, have their own kind of value. They keep us searching, keep us wondering, keep us walking into places where the map fades and the imagination takes over. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real treasure. Not the gold itself, but the mystery that refuses to be solved. Thank you for joining me on this journey into one of the most enduring mysteries of the American West. Now I have to wonder, if you had a map, vague, dangerous, but promising unimaginable wealth, would you follow it into the desert? Or would you let the mystery remain untouched? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, please like, comment, and share. It truly helps keep these stories alive.